Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 5 most common healthy eating mistakes that I see people make over and over as a dietitian. If you're new around here, my name is Becca. I'm a registered dietitian and I am extremely passionate about nutrition, but I'm also equally as passionate about approaching healthy eating in a way that is balanced, a way that is actually doable and sustainable. And I believe that the best way to actually accomplish that is through learning how to eat intuitively. I do have an entire course that teaches you everything from nutrition fundamentals, both biological nutrition, practical nutrition, also how to eat intuitively, A to Z, basically everything you need to know to completely master that skill. And lastly, I teach you how to completely rewire your brain, rewire your thoughts surrounding food so that you can move away from a diet mindset and move more towards a health mindset. And even if you don't diet, you are still likely operating from a dieting framework, which completely sabotages healthy eating. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 of the ways that people tend to sabotage their own healthy eating. If you want more information on the course, I will leave the link down below. But let's get started with the mistakes that I always see over and over again. The first one, and this is more of a technical one, but it's so common that I wanted to mention it first, and that is eating in a way that does not take into account or does not actually balance out your blood sugar. I have talked about this so much here on my channel through the years because it truly is imperative to healthy eating. And the reason for that is because if you have unbalanced blood sugar, if you're eating in a way that is going to send your blood sugar out of whack, it's going to create big spikes and then large dips. It's not only going to affect how you feel in the moment, but it is more importantly going to affect how you actually want to eat moving forward. And what I mean by that is when you eat, for example, a large amount of carbohydrates that are unbalanced, they are going to break down very quickly in your stomach and intestines into the smallest form of carbohydrates, which is glucose. All of that glucose that has quickly broken down is going to basically flood your bloodstream, which is going to lead to a big surge of sugar entering your blood at the same time. This causes a blood sugar spike. Now, what happens when we have sugar enter our bloodstream, our body is going to send out insulin, which is a hormone that's released from the pancreas, and that actually tells that sugar to go into the cells so that it can be used to make energy. But the problem is when we have this big spike in blood sugar, we end up trying to match it with a big spike of insulin, and we often overshoot it. Our bodies often shoot out too much. So then very quickly we go from high level of blood sugar to a big dip, a very, very fast drop, and it ends up often becoming actually too low. So we have a too high and then a too low. Now, what's happening in your body when that blood sugar drops really low and quickly, you are going to crave more carbohydrates. You are going to be wanting especially those simple carbohydrates. So you're going to be craving things like bread and sweets and candy, and that is literally just because your body is trying to bring your blood sugar back up. And then if you go ahead and eat something like that, again, that is unbalanced, the cycle starts all over again. So when you're eating carbohydrates, you want to be pairing them with fiber, with fat, and with protein. That would be most ideal. Are you going to do this perfectly every single time you eat carbs? No, you're not. Perfection isn't the goal here, but being conscious of this and eating in a way that's going to create stable blood sugar majority of the time is not only going to make a big difference in how you feel on the day to day. You're not going to be lethargic and crashy and unsatisfied and always craving more carbs. You are actually going to feel fuller. You're going to feel more satisfied. You're going to feel way more in control of your cravings. And looking at long-term health, this is super important too, because if we're always on that crazy blood sugar roller coaster, we end up becoming insulin resistant, which is type 2 diabetes. Furthermore, if we stay on that roller coaster, even with the insulin resistance, we are going to exhaust our pancreas to the point where it's just going to quit, it's going to give up, it's going to stop making insulin, and that is insulin dependent type 2 diabetes. Diabetes is unfortunately extremely common nowadays and can simply be avoided by just making smarter choices when we eat. We don't need to cut carbs completely. They are not bad, but they do raise our blood sugar. So when we understand what's happening biologically when we're consuming carbs, we can eat in a way that's a little bit smarter, that's going to blunt that impact and therefore have a better impact on our overall health. The second biggest mistake that I see is reliance on absolutes. For example, that food is bad, that food is good, this food is off limits, food should not be eating, you should eat a lot of this particular food because it's better. That is all applying absolutes to food, and really there's a lot more gray area. Of course, there are certain foods that have much higher nutritional value versus other foods that, for example, processed foods that are largely stripped of their nutrients and really don't offer much as far as macro and micronutrients. But the problem with applying morality to food is it creates this complex where it actually can really backfire on us. For example, when we say or decide that a certain food is off limits because it's bad, it automatically puts a lot more focus on that food, a lot more than it really deserves, because again, it's just a food, and it can make us crave it or want it even more. The even bigger problem here is the reason that people are so reliant on these absolutes. It's not because they necessarily choose to look at food that way. It's just because they haven't been taught any other way. There are these massive knowledge gaps. And this is where someone like me can come in and actually help you to close those gaps, help you to actually understand more deeply food and how it interacts with our biology. A perfect example is the carbohydrates we were just talking about. If you didn't understand how carbohydrates impact blood sugar, then you might just think that carbs are bad and carbs aren't supposed to be eaten. But that is actually not the truth. We can consume carbs. We just want to be mindful about the types of carbs we're consuming. If they are more complex carbs that are fiber rich. Now, if you're pairing those complex carbs with, say, protein and fat, it's going to slow down the entry of that sugar into your bloodstream even more. So when you actually understand that dynamic, you can eat carbohydrates and enjoy carbohydrates and not have it be something that's going to be detrimental to your health. Whereas if you don't have that knowledge, if that knowledge gap is present, then you can only rely really on, oh, carbs are bad, I'm not really supposed to be eating those because they're not very healthy. And that really is just one example. There are knowledge gaps everywhere when it comes to nutrition because most people just aren't taught this information. I always say I feel like every high school student should take a nutrition 101 course just to teach them how to eat as an adult and as someone who's going to go on to feed a family. But of course, that is not a reality here, and which is why I am so passionate about educating on nutrition and teaching people how to eat so that they can not only eat for health, but also for enjoyment as well and be able to actually balance it all. The third biggest mistake I see people make is attaching a weight loss goal or focusing on appearance to their healthy eating goals. Now, the reason I think that this is a mistake, especially when it comes to focusing on weight loss tied to your healthy eating changes, is because your weight is actually a very fickle parameter to be working with. But even more than that, weight loss, when we look at long-term studies, it's not something that's actually sustainable. So for example, if the weight loss comes about through restricting intake or restricting certain food groups in order to bring our intake down, going on some kind of diet, those things are not sustainable in the long term. You really need to have that balance. You need to have that sustainability in order for it to be something that you can continue to do year after year. And so much of the time I see people with really good intentions, wanting to just create healthier habits, become a healthier person. They go on a weight loss journey. And that is not by their, any fault of their own. It's just what we've been conditioned to do. You want to get healthier, you need to lose weight. You hear this all throughout our culture. Your doctor might tell you to straight up do this. And that is actually not what you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on creating the healthier habits that are actually sustainable, independent of what happens with your weight. This becomes a problem because your weight is, like I said, not a good parameter to focus on. It's not something that is a great indicator of health, even though we have been led to believe that it's the most important indicator. People have these great intentions, but because there is so much confusion around nutrition and just a lack of credible nutrition education, people end up looking to some kind of diet or some kind of meal plan because it's concrete, two, it's something that they can follow, and three, it promises results. So of course people are going to gravitate towards that. It makes total sense. But the problem here is, one, doing something like that is not sustainable. It's only something you're going to do for a short period of time, and when it ends, when you're over it, when you can no longer do it anymore, what have you really learned? Other than that maybe you're a failure and perhaps it has just totally backfired on you. You're not a failure, by the way. Those things are set up for failure so that you have to keep coming back over and over and over. That's why the diet industry makes billions of dollars every year. But then again, weight is just not a great parameter. For example, if someone is, starting to make healthier changes and they're eating better, they're also working out, maybe they're starting to lift weights, but they also have a weight loss goal, and this is something that they are heavily focused on. So perhaps through eating better and exercising, they are actually losing some of their body fat, but also by exercising, they're building muscle, which we all know muscle weighs more than fat. So maybe they're actually making some really great improvements when it comes to diet, when it comes to body composition, but the number on the scale is not budging. So they might just feel so defeated, right? This isn't working, and they quit. That is just one glaring reason why focusing on weight loss it's just not worth your time. And I think we all can conceptualize that. Everybody knows that, everybody understands that. But for whatever reason, we are still so tied and so obsessed with weight loss being a part of the equation. The fourth biggest mistake I see people make when it comes to healthy eating is not creating systems when it comes to eating better. If you want to make changes that are going to be sustainable, you need to create new habits. And creating new habits is not something that's easy. A year or so ago, I read a book about habits, and it basically talked about how you're either in the habit of doing something or you're in the habit of not doing something. And I never looked at it that way. I never thought about everything that I do, whether it's good or bad or something I want to do or don't want to do, is a habit. So you might want to eat better, but you might not be in the habit of grocery shopping every week and meal planning what you're going to eat every week if that's what you want to do. You might be in the habit of buying processed foods and stocking your pantry with things that maybe aren't the healthiest options that are going to be right at your fingertips. You might not be in the habit of cooking your own food, cooking your own meals. And creating new habits is not easy. So it is so important that we create systems or rhythms within, our kitchen, our routine, so that we can actually make these things more doable. One of the easiest ways to start creating those systems is looking at the weak spots. Do you often come home from work and you are famished to the point where you just start grabbing random crackers and things out of the pantry, and then you just eat a bunch of crackers, and then all of a sudden now you're not hungry for dinner? That's just one small example. Then you need to create a better system where you are maybe having some kind of snack that's got some protein, that's got some fat, it's well balanced, so you're actually going to feel full and satisfied. You need to have a snack, maybe a couple hours or an hour or so before you get home, so that you are not ending up in this hungry, eating whatever I can grab from the cabinet phase. When you can identify things that consistently go wrong, you can start creating systems around that to essentially solve that problem, and then consistently do those behaviors that solve the problem so that the problem goes away. And what's super important about this is you are the one creating the system. You are the one solving the problem. You are in the driver's seat. So you are going to automatically make something or create a system that makes sense for your life, that is doable for you, as long as you're actually making sure that it is doable, which means that this is something that is going to be sustainable for you. This is something that you are going to hopefully be able to keep up. If you're just blindly following someone else's meal plan or someone else's system, then it might not actually be something that's a good fit for you, and it might not work very long. The fifth mistake I see people make all the time is not adopting a long-term mindset. We are definitely a culture that wants a quick fix. We want a quick turnaround. We want to see those quick results. And in order to do that, we often do we take pretty extreme short-term measures to see that quick turnaround of results. But if the measures are extreme, yes, they might work for a brief period of time, but they're not going to work much beyond that. So when someone goes on a diet or engages in some kind of new restrictive eating pattern, it's typically to bring about results quickly, but again, not something that you're going to continue forever. So I want to always challenge my viewers, challenge my students to not think about just what they want right now. I want them to think about their long-term health and how they can start implementing new habits or new thought patterns or new strategies to improve what they're doing today when it comes to their eating, that will actually A, be sustainable, but B, be something that's going to pay off and improve your health in the long run. If you're always focused on the short term and getting those quick results, you're just going to do that over and over and over and over again, and you might not actually ever get anywhere. And in fact, people who, for example, yo-yo diet, that go on strict diets, they lose the weight and then the weight comes back on and then they do it again and then blah, 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 and it just keeps continuing and you're kind of on this roller coaster or yo-yoing. Those people, studies show, actually have a higher risk for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So not only is it kind of harrowing to put yourself through that over and over, it's very difficult, it takes a lot of mental energy, and it really is going to, honestly, in my opinion, decrease the quality of your life. It can actually have massive impacts on your long-term health as well. So the ticket here is finding that balance between eating well, nourishing your body, and prioritizing nutrition without it becoming something that is stressful and overtakes your life, but also being able to really enjoy food and eat in a way that, again, prioritizes nutrition, but is not something that is going to be unsustainable. When you adopt a long-term mindset, it allows you to relax a little bit and not focus so much on eating right or eating perfectly. And it keeps you from falling into those extremes that are trying to get you to eat right or eat perfectly. I want for you to be able to enjoy food without it being a detriment to your health. And in order to do that, you need to pair nutrition knowledge that allows for nourished eating with the skill of intuitive eating so that you can truly eat what you want and enjoy all food while having those kind of internal guardrails that will keep you from going off the edge, keep you from, eating in a way that is going to be detrimental to your health. But you're not relying on external resources and strict diets and one-size-fits-all meal plans that invite a lot of stress into your life. You are able to do it all on your own and pretty effortlessly. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I'm a big believer that knowledge is power, and when you can, tease out and learn certain mistakes you might be making, they become that much easier to create solutions for. If you want to learn more about my course where I teach you how to eat for both nourishment and enjoyment and do it in a way that is effortless and not stressful, I will leave that information and that link for you down below. I would love for you to join me inside the course so that I can teach you all that I know and help you to make those sustainable changes that are actually going to change your life. But that is all I have for today's video. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.